You are already ahead of 90% of people your age if you can just communicate fluidly. It has been statistically proven that those who are better communicators often receive more money, gain higher opportunities in their jobs, and attract higher quality sexual partners. If you look at all of the people under 25 today, there is a high demand for these competent speakers, but not a lot of people who are willing to do it. So what that means is that you don't need to be the best speaker out there. You just need to be okay. So you'd be pretty dumb to click off of this video right now, as it might just save the rest of your entire life. Being a good communicator is like being a rock star on stage in your everyday life. So let me show you how. When I was in middle school, I knew I wanted to be successful. I wanted to be famous, I wanted to travel the world, and I wanted to make millions of dollars. Pretty much every single metric you could guess, that is what I wanted to achieve. Luckily enough for me, I had figured this out at a young age, but I was still stuck in my scrawny 110-pound middle school body. So even at that young of an age, there was this big divide between where I was now and where I wanted to be in the future. And that divide, that distance between where I was and where I wanted to be, produced these feelings of self-doubt. And it made me think, well, what am I doing? What should I really be prioritizing? These feelings of doubt manifested themselves in many ways, but the most prominent that I found was in my communication. And don't get me wrong, in no sense was I a bad communicator. I had already been in multiple different school areas and made friends with the kids there. It was something that I liked to do and something that I felt like I was good at. But still, regardless of how good I was in reality, there was still this mental blockage going on in my head that prevented me from reaching my full potential. Which, speaking of that blockage, you're probably wondering why I have this up behind me. So in this diagram right here, this pipe represents your speech. It is how fluidly you can communicate a simple topic, how clear and concise you are in the vocabulary you use. This right here, this water, represents the quality of the speech as it comes out. This is the things you say, everything that everyone can hear. And what happens when you have a big pipe like this? You start to get this blockage, this gunk and filth inside of the pipes. We don't want that, because if we have this gunk in our pipes, it's going to ruin the end quality of the water. Even though we have a good speech, we have good genetics, we have good habits, no ums, no ahs, this self-doubt gunk is impeding us from saying what we want to concisely and effectively. So we don't want this. So that brings us to the question, how do we get rid of it? The very first thing to do when you're trying to get rid of this is to realize what's causing it. What's causing it? Why are you getting these fears when you're speaking? You know you're a good speaker, you have plenty of things to talk about, and you're talking to people who want to listen. But even still, you have these doubts that are holding you back. So what that looks like in a real scenario is asking yourself the very specific but important questions. Why am I putting this pressure on myself? Why do I think the people I'm speaking to are somehow judging me if I mess up? This right here, these simple thoughts, are getting rid of this gunk. When we have less of this gunk, everything flows more smoothly. Everything from here gets all the way to the pipe, out to the water, which again means the quality of your speech. And that doesn't mean that it's bad or that's unnormal to have these kinds of gunk. I get nervous all the time speaking to people, especially new people, and so does every great speech giver out there. It doesn't mean that you're not supposed to not have this gunk. It's just that you eliminate as much of it as you can to prevent yourself from falling into these traps of self-doubt and then giving the best quality speech that you can. And on that note, about the best quality speech you can, once we've eliminated this self-doubt, we can start thinking about the quality of our water, which is the actual speech itself. Now, improving this water quality really comes down to about 4 things. 4 simple things that you could do today that will drastically benefit how you are perceived by other people when you're speaking. The first thing that you can do is figure out the intention behind what you're saying. Every time you open your mouth, whether you think it or not, you are communicating something for a purpose. And that purpose that outlines the words that you say is often more important than what the words you're saying are themselves. Now, let me break this down to an example so it's more clear. When I was in the early stages of high school, and maybe my freshman or sophomore year, there was this girl that was very cute. We were out at recess and there was these beautiful trees and a little seating area underneath. I saw her sitting alone and I figured out from afar, I'm going to go and talk to her. Now, of course, 16-year-old me, filled with all these endorphins and puberty and thoughts that I can't talk about on camera, I wasn't exactly going up to her with the intention of marrying her or taking her out to a nice date, you know? So I kind of went up and I had this sort of goal of like, I'm gonna talk to her, I'm going to riz her, and I found that the second I mustered up the courage and actually began talking to her, I just sort of froze up. Everything that I was saying seemed ingenuine. I had this one intention in my mind, and then I had this other intention that I was trying to display through my words to her. And because there was this dissonance, this difference between my intention and what I was actually trying to say, there were these awkward moments. There were these pauses, and there were these times where I frankly wish that I had just kept my mouth shut and never even approached her in the first place. And this doesn't mean that there's this single right intention of going up to someone, but you have to figure that before you start opening your mouth. Once you know up here what you're trying to say, saying it here is going to become a lot easier than if you're just trying to fill the gaps or make conversation. Remember, the intention behind your speech is ultimately what drives good conversations. The second exercise that you can do to become a better speaker is to listen to good speakers and figure out why those speeches were so compelling. And if you're able to tap into just 10% of it and stop listening to literally what they're saying and start paying attention to their pauses or their vocabulary or how they set the scene for the stories they're telling. If you pay attention to all these little groundwork things and don't get sucked into what they're trying to say, because you probably will since they're so good at speaking. But if you can just stay back and stay disciplined and focus on the little nitpicky psychology things that make them so compelling to listen to, studying those things are going to make you yourself a better speaker. Next, the third thing that you can do to become a more affluent speaker is to focus on leveling up who you are as a person. Your self-confidence, how you, when you look in the mirror, perceive yourself, plays a big factor in how you come across to other people. If you can't genuinely look in the mirror and say to yourself, I'm the man, or I'm the woman, or I can do this thing, and mean it, and not laugh at yourself, then there's probably some inner confidence issue that could be resolved, and the result of that resolution will be you becoming a better speaker. Now again, this can be a variety of things. This can be going to the gym. This can be getting a haircut that looks better on you. Or it could be getting some nice clothes. And when you can look in the mirror and say, I am that person, and mean it, that is going to instill this indestructible confidence within you that other people are going to notice when you're talking to them. And following off of that, following off of confidence and doing the things that honestly might suck in the short term so that they're good in the long term, the fourth thing, which is most important, would be to stay in front of a camera and watch yourself talk. I know, even I'm like, oh my God, like I don't want to do that. No one wants to do that because it's freaking hard. It's a scary thing to do, to step in front of a camera, to yap about nothing, and then to look back at that footage and think, oh, I sounded way better in my head. But if you can have the grit to do what most people do not want to do, you are going to see the results that they will not get. So if you have the courage to step in front of a camera, as scary as it is, and just talk to yourself and listen to your speech and take notes about what are the things you can improve on, you are going to become a better communicator. That's it from me. I'll catch you in the next one.